Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The ReQuest! It's me, Captain Logan. Joining me, as always, is Austin the Day Ghost. How's it going, Austin?
For a second, I thought I was still muted, and then I realized that I'm not. So I was like, I need to not say anything until I unmute, and then I looked down and went, oh, I already unmuted.
I don't think you had to tell anybody. I don't think anybody would have noticed.
No, if you look deeply into my eyes, which a lot of the viewers do, you'd notice that there was something off.
Would it be just because I was looking at my other screen? It was just this awkward moment of like, hello everyone.
Yeah, no, I was definitely you were getting ready, and I was just going.
Well, it's Wednesday. That means it's time to review another film or whatever, but it is a film today requested by one of our patrons. Today, the patron in question is Josh Gilisano, who is one of our long-time patrons and a good friend of me and Austin. And this was kind of an obvious request from Josh, but I'm really, because he's a huge, like, old-school Superman fan, and I'm really glad that he picked this one, because this is a thing that I've wanted to talk about somewhere on the channel for years, Austin, and I kind of keep forgetting about it. Every now and again, I'll get a message from somebody or see a comment somewhere where somebody goes, where's Iron Giant on your channel? Of all the, 13 years you've never talked about Iron Giant. And I also get questions about whether or not it counts for Rewind. And maybe we should get that whole debate out of the way, because I know folks in the live comments are probably going to talk about that. Should I do a rewind on this? Does it count as a superhero movie? I'm somewhat mixed on it. It's one of those things where I could see doing it, but I don't know if it counts.
Yes, I fall on a straight no, but I can understand why you would think maybe. But I see this more as just like a throwback to old school sci-fi pulp than superhero. There's just obviously an element of that because, that was also part of that period.
Yeah, and yet the part of me that wants it to count is the part of me that wants superhero movies to not have to fall into a superhero formula.
That's true too.
Like a standard formula. If you had a character that in comics was generally considered a superhero that had the kind of arc. Well, I can't say that because I don't know. I guess the protagonist in this movie is more the kid, is more Hogarth than maybe it is the giant himself. But he still sort of has an arc, right? Where the both of them, I guess, have to ultimately come to terms with the idea that the nature nurture thing. We can be, who we choose to be. Kind of the big recurring phrase of the film. I could see a character that usually is played as like a stalwart hero in a comic being adapted in this way, where the whole question is, are they a superhero or not? We kind of just did that with the Batman in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess when you look at something like Hulk or something, like, at least for just like an origin, you could make that argument, because it's definitely looking at stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. Like, you could have a sequel to Iron Giant that is very easily straight up a superhero movie, right? like almost a Big Hero 6 sort of thing. This could be this is a Baymax sort of character, now that I'm thinking about it.
Well, I was even just thinking, and I mean, I said Hulk, but just the way in which a lot of the good Marvel origin stories are like kind of Twilight Zone episodes before their superhero origins. Like, yeah. Iron Man has that too. So like you could maybe see this if this was like an issue, and then you could like move on, and then next issue he fights Scorpion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's an alternate universe where this movie was actually successful in the first place and got sequels, and those sequels looked like standard superhero fare or closer to that, and the whole universe thinks of Iron Giant as a superhero. But whether you think of it that way or not, the Superman element obviously is really important. We'll talk about that. If it's not a superhero movie, it's a movie about a couple of characters that want to believe that they can be that and are trying to live up to the kind of impossible standard of Superman, which is was one of the big takeaways for me with this movie. Austin, you had never seen this.
Yeah. No, this was a movie as a kid. I went, oh, the Iron Giant. I don't know. That doesn't sound interesting. And then I never got to it. A lot of the VHS tapes that I had as a kid had the trailer for this,
Yeah.
so I saw the trailer a lot, but I never saw the movie.
And you thought it just looked like standard family fare.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, I don't know. I'm weird when I'm a kid because it's like I can watch R-rated movies really early. So there's a certain point where I go, like kids movie, whatever. Like I'm already kind of past that.
Well, I'm not sure if I would have seen it if it weren't for the fact that at the time I had young siblings.
Oh, okay, for sure.
So this movie comes out when I'm, I don't know, 14,
Mhm.
14, 15, and I saw this movie a lot, and I keep thinking of this as a thing from my earlier childhood because I have that thing with it where I haven't seen it in a bunch of years, a couple of decades at least, but certain things about it, especially the main theme of the movie, the kind of lesson at the end, always really stuck with me. And I figured if I went back and watched it, I would kind of have a lot of deja vu. And I had that, but I forgot that this wasn't a movie I saw when I was 7 or 8. It was a movie I saw when I was 14.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not even entirely sure when this came out,
This
but
comes out in '99.
yeah, I assumed it was about late 90s.
So, as you know, this is a Brad Bird movie, and this is he's working for, I forget where he's within Warner Brothers at the time that this gets made, but he's not with their animation studio, and they bring him over to make this movie. And he had worked mostly before this on The Simpsons was his big animation credit.
Mhm. Yeah, and we talked in that the first Simpsons discussion we did, because the episode we watched at the end was one of the episodes he directed,
I forgot
and
about that.
just how crazy the facial animations get in that specific episode when he was
Yeah.
directing it. And this movie has that in spades. It's definitely just the way he likes to animate, which is a little bit lost in The Incredibles, I think, with the 3D animation.
Yeah, that's true. But the human models in that movie are definitely more expressive than they are in some other things.
No, for sure.
And you get
It's just
those
not as
those
crazy.
bits where Bob Parr's like ah, and you're like, oh, that's great. And wasn't
Yeah.
that also the first of the Pixar movies that went full on human beings, where they like finally made that switch and were willing to
Yes.
make humans the main characters?
Hmm. Yeah, because before that we only really had Andy and his creepy mom and sister.
Yeah, and you don't see their faces that much. And in the first movie, I don't think you do at all. Well, you see Andy, but you don't see the mom.
Yeah.
They do the kind of Sylvester and Tweety thing where
Hmm.
she's
No, because you're like, why is
her
that
head's cut
other
off.
Woody like so much bigger than the other toys? Oh, he's a person.
Austin, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, why don't you give us a quick synopsis in case it's been a while since folks have seen this, or folks have never seen this. This is one of those rare requests where I'm actually pretty familiar with this movie before going in. It was really weird going back to it after so many years because I had forgotten a lot of details with it, and I'll talk about that. But refresh our memories, Austin.
So the Iron Giant takes place in 1957, I think it is, and a giant metal man crashes in a small town right in the heart of the Cold War, so everyone's afraid of those darn commies. And you have a kind of crazy military guy who's trying to figure out about the Iron Giant so that the Americans can destroy him. Meanwhile, you have a kid who is befriending the Iron Giant, like E.T., but watchable. Um, and yeah, the kid's got to protect the Iron Giant from the government.
It's a story about a boy and his giant robot.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. A tale as old as time.
Yeah, E.T. is the obvious comparison. That's what Ebert compared it to when it came out, and he did his review, and probably everybody else at the time as well. I'm kind of with you, where this is a lot more of what I would have liked to have had from that movie, with in where the extraterrestrial is a lot more proactive.
Hmm. No,
It just
absolutely.
feels
You
like
even
there's a
get like
lot
the
more at
little moment
stake.
where he puts his finger on his chest.
Yeah, and that's pretty clearly a reference. Like they're kind of self aware about it. We're like everybody's going to compare this to ET. We might as well put it, but it's a subtle enough reference.
Yeah, it's not like his finger glows.
Yeah, he doesn't say anything about telephones or anything.
No,
Uh,
thank God.
but it does have a lot in common with that movie, not just in it's a kid trying to hide an alien from his mom. And this is kind of more fun because the giant is so huge, it's harder. Uh, but also the government trying to get its hands on it aspect. I guess here it's let's destroy it, and in ET it was more let's like find it and study it.
Hmm. Yeah, and then of course this is what Bumblebee thinks it is.
I don't disagree with that either. E.T. I don't dislike as much as you do. I've always been, kind of lukewarm on that movie. I think I saw it too much when I was growing up as part of it. But for the longest time, I thought I was the only person that was just kind of meh on E.T. And then I met folks like you that really dislike E.T. and was like, I didn't even know you were allowed to dislike E.T.
Which is funny because I have the reverse, where I didn't watch it growing up because both of my parents hate ET, and like I have twin aunts, they both hate ET. So like throughout my childhood, it was like, yeah, ET sucks. Like don't watch that. And then I was like 17, 8. Actually, I think I was like 19. I had my one aunt. She was like, "Oh, you haven't seen ET? You have to see this." And she put it on, and I was like, "Yeah, they're kind of right. This does suck."
Yeah, what I like about the robot in this versus ET is he's like I said, he's more proactive and he's not just a victim, but the ways in which he is a victim are really compelling. Maybe partly because he is also the thing that creates the largest stakes, right? Like if only ET was like a ticking time bomb in some way, it might have helped.
Hmm. Yeah, something where it's not as kind of relaxed.
Yeah, there's just always this like looming sense of suspense with this movie, even though it's it's not like a super fast paced film, and it is certainly a lot of fun, and it's there's not this like sense of dread with it necessarily, but there is kind of a component of that. Like I like that it's a Cold War parable where the bomb is like there and a character and likable, and you don't want to see it explode. And
Mhm.
we're gonna America's our government's gonna screw that up and make that happen. It's as if the Russians themselves sent the bomb, but the bomb itself didn't want to be evil. Uh, and from our perspective, that's from the Americans' perspective, that's kind of what it is because they don't know it's from space.
Mhm. No, exactly. And then I guess the last thing I
So
have to
it's the
say about
perfect setting
ET.
for this. Certainly, it's kind
No,
of I don't know. It's
absolutely.
got that in common with Godzilla, I guess.
Mhm. No, definitely. Well, the big difference between this and ET is that if a kid were to find a giant robot man, they would go, "Wow, like that's awesome. He's like a transformer." If they were to see a little alien, they would beat it to death with a stick. That's like one of these is realistic, the other is not.
That's a good point. Well, Austin, why don't you talk a little bit about just your experience seeing this film, since you'd kind of written it off as the thing you probably would never have bothered with.
Yeah, because even when we got this, it was like I don't know. I never really cared when I was a kid, and I don't know, like I'm an adult now. Like it's not like I go out of my way to watch kids movies. And that's not to like put down like animated kids movies, but it's just not something that I'm like actively like, "Ooh, I'm gonna sit down and watch this," unless it's something I've seen before. So there was just kind of that element to it. But I watched it, and it's really good. It's definitely a shame I didn't watch it as a kid, but whatever. I mean, maybe I wouldn't like it back then. Who knows? There's definitely stuff I appreciate more that it's looking at that I didn't know growing up, so that probably helps. This is also the first time I can say, "Wow, Jennifer Aniston did a good job."
I don't dislike Jennifer Aniston, but she definitely disappears here. Like I read that later, I didn't even realize whose voice I was listening to, and I was like, oh, that's surprising.
Yeah, when her name came up in the opening credits, I was like, "Uh oh."
Yeah, and I didn't
Uh-oh.
notice it in the opening. I didn't catch it till later, and yeah, it's one of those movies that does cast some like actors you've heard of before voice actors, but it seems like the Pixar thing. And by the way, everything about this feels like a Pixar thing. Like if this was in three dimensions, it could have been a Pixar movie. It certainly feels like a Pixar script, which makes sense because of who wrote it. But you know, it's weird because it's 5 years into Pixar, but it feels like a proto Pixar movie.
Mhm.
And you
No,
can see
definitely.
like the shades of, or the, or I should say, like the breadcrumbs that will later lead to Wall-E, because that, you know, obviously last time I saw this was well before even that movie had come out, and so that was a comparison I found myself making constantly, especially the expressive robot with a face that doesn't look like it should be able to be as expressive as it is. It's making a lot. Wall-E is more of an extreme of that, of course, but like this is more of a humanish face, I guess, than even that. But it still is impressive, like how human the whole thing seems.
Hmm. Yeah, well, and then the thing that this has over Wally is that it doesn't kind of go to hell once you get like human characters in it. Um,
I mean, I
but
don't agree with that. I like Wall-E on the whole, but
that's fine. I think it's got a really strong first half and then like a really rough second half. But that movie's overall is fine.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, that's
but
fair. You could
but this
you could
movie
have a
is like a
different
mix
opinion
of
than mine.
no.
I
My
but
opinion.
I can kind of see where you're coming from, because even in the theater there was a part of me when the human characters came on screen that was jarred by that.
Yeah, and I don't know. That's one of those movies where it's like like I wish you just kind of owned it and made like a really like risky kids movie with just silent robots for the entire movie.
Yeah,
Uh,
or at the very least, if it had to be humans, like if you had to have them there, shoot them. Sorry, now we're talking about that movie. Shoot them like as minimally as possible, and take the insane risk to actually shoot real people and not make it animated.
that
Uh,
that could have been interesting. And don't make Hal
because they have
9000 the main
because don't you
villain.
remember there's that shot where they have the president of Earth talking and he's a human being on the
Yeah, 'cause it's
screen.
Fred Willard.
Yeah,
No, that would have been a better
I couldn't
idea.
remember who it was, and I was like, the inconsistency of that threw me off.
Hmm.
But
No,
on paper, like the script is good. I like everything that's done with the humans. Like
yeah. No, and it's weird
I
because
like
it's
the point
one
that's
of the
being made
only.
about complacency with that whole thing. But
No, and it's weird because it's one of the only Pixar movies where it's like, oh, their main villain is just a popular, like, famous movie villain. It's just Hal 9000.
yeah,
It's really awkward.
there was that. Okay, is this a better movie than that? Let's make that comparison.
100%. 100%. This movie's great. Um, no, 'cause you compared it to Pixar, and yeah, I think it definitely stands up, if not even better than a lot of Pixar's output, even early on, I think.
The thing that okay, a couple of things that kind of surprised me on a rewatch, it being so long since I'd seen this, because I'm a different person now, right? One of them is anime influences, because I have seen anime since then and had not seen one at the time I saw that movie, and it's really heavily influenced by Miyazaki and stuff, and you can tell, and also just in tone and the way the story is constructed. What's interesting is it was sold as a kids movie. It on the whole more or less is a kids movie. It's not written like a kids movie,
Hmm.
at least in a lot of ways. Certainly the
No,
dialogue isn't. There's an authenticity to both the time period and just the way adults and human beings at large would interact with each other in the 50s that you would not get if Warner's hadn't basically taken their hands off the reins and let Brad Bird make this the way he wanted to, because he had a kind of an unprecedented amount of control over this, and then Warner's got cold feet apparently after I read about this today, after Quest for Camelot didn't do very well, and they didn't bother giving it hardly any advertising, and so it really bombed at the box office. And had Disney put this out, here's the other comparison I want to make: if Pixar puts this movie out, it's Wall-E big.
yeah,
I
I've
really
always
believe
heard
that,
about
even
that.
being a 50s period thing.
Mhm. No, I've always heard that one of the biggest issues with this financially was they put like no marketing into it. It's a Mask of the Phantasm situation.
Yep, exactly, and that's also Warner's.
Hmm.
On the other hand, see, I say it would do that huge. I don't know, early 3D animation, uh, like a lot of that's going to do well anyway, just because it's still a novelty. But forgetting that whole thing, I could be right and I could be wrong about that, because there's also the fact that Rocketeer didn't do great, and it's set in a similar period, and has like I just thought of that, and has like a somewhat similar aesthetic, and so it could have been wrong time, wrong place. To some degree, also like that also might have hurt it, where like kids just didn't care about seeing a movie set in this setting and time period.
That's
But
true.
you'd need to see it advertised properly before you could be sure if that hurt it.
Hmm. No, I guess no matter what, it probably always would have ended up being a cult classic.
I still say though, if it's done in 3D animation and Pixar puts it out, it makes a lot of money. Um,
No, and that was one of the things that I really liked watching it. It was like, oh yeah, I remember hand-drawn animation.
yeah,
This is
and this would have
nice.
been one of the last really good ones. Because even by '99, a lot of TV shows are starting to go more digital. It's not going to be
Yeah,
too long before Justice League is done entirely in digital.
and I mean, Disney, it their 2000s is kind of a train wreck.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to assume that I don't know what the last hand-drawn Disney movie is,
Well,
but I
yeah,
would
that's
assume that
probably still done digitally.
right around this period, they're probably doing digital animation. So there's a difference, in case you're not picking up on what I'm saying, between.
Oh no, no,
No,
no,
not you. I'm just talking
oh,
about.
sorry.
I'm just talking to the audience. In case you don't get what I'm saying, there's a difference between 2D animation and hand-drawn animation, and so we were still doing a lot of flat animation, but we weren't doing it by hand. And this is done by hand, but it's a really cool blend of 2D and 3D, and because there are a lot of computer effects in this movie, particularly with the robot, and I like the way they're blended. Like you can,
Yeah,
and sometimes I don't with this sort of thing, where the character models, the flat human models stand too much apart from the 3D stuff. Here it felt like a stylistic choice before it seemed inconsistent.
yeah, it reminded me quite a bit of Futurama, which is obviously around this time too, and that does it as
That's a
well.
great point. Yeah,
They
and I
both,
never minded it there either.
and they both know what to make 3D and what to make 2D, which really helps.
Yep. That's a really good point. This also, and maybe I had this thought back in the day when I saw it. I don't remember, but 5 minutes into this, I went, "It's really weird that Don Bluth didn't work on this, because it looks like a Bluth movie." And, or at least to some degree, like you can tell that Bird is taking some of his cues from particularly the like exaggerated faces, and he's not afraid of ugliness with
Mhm.
people. Like there's some just kind of small town, I don't know how else to put it, like homely looking people in this movie. He's not trying to exaggerate it. I mean, it's exaggerated, but he's not trying to make everybody look pretty. It's this really cool kind of juxtaposition of ostensibly idyllic 1950s in a world where things aren't going so well, and there's impending doom, and everybody is afraid of the bomb dropping, and you've got that amusing um, uh, video
It's like
that.
out of RoboCop.
Yeah, well, but I mean, they had those back then. It wasn't
No,
even
no, I know,
very
but I
far
just mean,
outside of the way they
yeah,
did those, where it was like get it underneath your desk when the bombs drop, and of course that's not going to do anything. And I really liked, by the way, I'm jumping around, but I liked that at the end we actually dealt with that in a practical situation where they're about to get nuked, because the army guy is an idiot, and it didn't even occur to him that he would die if the bomb drops. And to kill the robot, he's just obsessed, I guess, with getting his glory for taking out uh,
like a Captain Ahab thing.
yeah, because he should just be happy that he was proven right, but that's not good enough for him. He's got to kind of be the hero, which of course is ironic. But they all kind of stand around and they wait for the bomb to drop, and somebody says, maybe we should go get in a shelter, and I can't remember who. I can't remember if it was
There's a
the
few
father
people
figure
that say
character
it.
or who it was, but somebody after that goes, yeah, it's not going to help. Like, there's no
Yeah,
reason. Let's
there's
just
a
stay
few people
here.
that say it.
Yeah,
No, which is interesting because it's like here's the propaganda versus like, yeah, no, that isn't gonna do anything.
and
Like it's
that
just to
kind
make
of
you feel better.
yeah, that kind of realism makes it feel a lot less like a standard um cliche like children's film.
No, and that's
It does have
actually
its moral lesson at the end. It is spelled out in some places, but I feel like it's all of a piece. Like Ebert in his review called it a parable. I agree with that. I was thinking that too. Like parable even before fairy tale. I think. Um,
Mhm. Well, and that when you mentioned Bluth, I was gonna mention that too because that's like a very Don Bluth thing to do is just be like, yeah, like you can scare kids, like do
yeah,
it, like don't be afraid of that stuff. Like as long as everything works out by the end, like you can have moments throughout your movies that are kind of hard for kids to see.
yeah. Well, and it raises the stakes to the point where it makes you wonder because there's nothing mean spirited about it. Like even if the robot doesn't make it at the end, we're gonna spoil everything. Even if the robot doesn't make it at the end, because ultimately he does get put back together. And I wanted to ask you how you felt about that choice.
Mhm.
When, but like even if that didn't happen, I think that the point of it still stands, and it's still a hopeful piece. You know what I mean? Especially because it is a like sacrifice, like a self-sacrifice thing. Like the whole point is, you can choose to be the hero or the villain, and you might not make it, out at the end, but at least, you saved the people that you cared about, or you died trying. Um, how did you feel about that?
It reminded me a bit of Soul, the Pixar movie,
Yeah,
in that I
which I
kind of
liked a
feel
lot,
like,
and then I talked about it with Connor, and he made it me like it this much less.
oh, interesting. I've never talked to him about that movie, but I also really liked that when I first saw it, and I've only seen it once.
Same here.
But that was a movie
Which
that
is
I
weird because I
like.
had almost like a spiritual experience with that movie, and like I cried at the end. I've never seen it again.
Yeah, that was a movie I like. Every 15 minutes, it kind of changes, and I'd go, "Whoa, I don't like this change," and then it would win me over, and I would go like, "Oh no, this is just a really good movie." And then the ending made me go like, "Oh yeah, that just kind of feels a little cheap." Like, yeah, it's a kids movie. You can't have um the ending it should have. And part of me does have that with this, admittedly, where I do kind of feel like the ending where you see the giant is still alive is like, oh, I don't know. I don't think we needed that.
Does it feel sequel baity?
To an
Like I
extent,
can't decide.
I guess to an extent, but it's more just like, don't worry, kids. Like it is still alive. Like it's not dead.
So I always want to take a movie on its own terms,
Mhm.
of course, and looking at it without knowing anything about the behind the scenes, how it was made, what it's based on. This is based on a short story by a
Oh,
short
okay.
story or a book, I forget, by Ted Hughes from the early '60s. I'll talk about that in a second. Without knowing about any of that, which I didn't know until today,
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
I had very much that on this viewing where I'm like, I can't decide if that cheapens the point of the ending or not. I like I can kind
It's a
of
bit of a rises thing.
well, it makes it's maybe the thing that ends up making it feel a little bit too much for kids because it's
Mhm.
taking a lot of risks before that, and it's very Incredibles in that way actually, where like your kids can see it, and it's aimed at kids and it's advertised that way, and that's fine, but like occasionally you're gonna get like a hell and a damn, and we're gonna talk about death, and there's the potential for like you believe that people get killed in this universe, and that
Mhm.
Things are not black and white. And you need that to make the story work. It's going to feel way too sappy and way too cheeseball if you don't do this, Austin, because the point is the world is not black and white. The world is a scary place. uh, there are individual people that do not have your best interests at heart, but a person, you have the opportunity to be who you want to be the hero if you want to. And my big takeaway from this when I was a kid was always, oh, this is about the importance uh, of children's literature, of children's entertainment. This is like, even though the world doesn't look like a golden age comic book, kids need to have the sense that good can win out at the end, even if that's not what we always see in the real world. It's not always about relatability. It's not always about creating what you're seeing in the real world. It's also not just about escapism either. It's about moral lessons. You have to exaggerate. I don't mean to soapbox. You have to exaggerate the world on the page in a comic book or a cartoon or a storybook or whatever if the point you're making is here's an ideal to live up to, and create that black and white world in the exact same way that George Orwell had to exaggerate the dystopian future. It's the same thing in the other direction. And I
Yeah, of
love
course.
that about this movie. But if the world was as idealized as the Golden Age Superman comic that the kid is looking at and trying to teach to the robot, it doesn't work. You have to have that. So then, if the robot is able to survive at the end because the universe kind of coalesces and says you deserve to live because you ultimately achieved the ideal of Superman, is like, should it have done that? Okay, and then
It's kind
here's
of
the
of two
problem.
minds.
The problem is the reason that Ted Hughes wrote his story in the first place, because the point with his story was that the robot does pull himself back together. And by the way, the story is quite a bit different from this. It's set in, I can't remember, Ireland or the UK, but the setting was changed for this. And he wrote it for his children because his wife had just committed suicide, and she was the popular poet Sylvia Plath. That's who he was married to. And she had, 1962, she had just committed suicide, and he writes this story to try to cheer his kids up, and the robot dies but comes back together, and that's in his book. And
Mhm.
so I don't know how I feel about it now, knowing that, but not having that. I was really on the fence about it.
Well, it sounds like it works more for the book than the movie.
Well,
And
I'm not
maybe
even
it could have.
sure because, of course, I haven't read that, and I'm not even sure if. I mean, all respect to him and what he was trying to say to his children, like, but she's not coming back. Like, I'm not sure what his point was, but you know what I mean, except to just cheer his kids up. But at
Well,
the same
Doolittle in
time,
the
I don't
chat
know.
says that it's like a metaphor for rebuilding yourself in the face of grief. So
Okay, so it's not. So thank you. The robot would not represent her. The robot would represent the children
yeah,
who
uh,
get psychologically blown up because their mother has committed suicide.
mhm. Yeah. So it
Okay,
sounds like that works a bit better for the book. Well, in this, it kind of feels like, don't worry, kids. Like the robot comes back. He's not dead.
yeah.
Which is unfortunate
It
because
feels like a studio mandate, but it wasn't.
yeah, no, absolutely, and it's unfortunate because I don't think the robot's death is sad ultimately. Like I do think it has that like um that same kind of like relief and like heroic moment just without him coming back. But maybe that's because I'm looking at it as an adult versus as a kid where you're more likely to go like, oh, this character I like died. Like it's harder to deal with.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. But that is definitely where it feels more like, yeah, this is a kids movie, which is unfortunate because, and I can't even believe I'm saying this, but earlier on in the movie they fake out the kid's death, and I was so lost in the movie that I went, whoa, did they actually kill the kid? And I never have that on kids' movies. And then,
And yet, that one works.
yeah,
That one doesn't feel like we're
no,
teasing
that
the
doesn't
audience
feel
too
cheap.
much. Well,
No,
especially because the main reason is because it motivates the giant, right?
no, because it's just a part of the story. Like
He
that,
doesn't
that
have a
would happen
way.
in a movie made for adults. Like that's not like, oh, we cheaped out because it's a movie for kids.
And I
Like that
buy
would
the
happen in the
situation
story.
where that kid could be in bad shape or he could be okay. Like the way they formulate what happens to him, I can kind of buy him either at least being knocked out for a long time or getting up after a bit and kind of brushing it off. Like that was really well handled. But maybe the reason you were manipulated in the moment, Austin, is because of the deer thing. Because I found that really effective.
Yeah,
The way he
no,
like he
absolutely.
pokes the deer
I was
and
shocked they
and the
went
kid,
that far.
it's great. It's Bambi level, right? Like he
Oh, it's even
teaches
farther than that.
it's wonderful. Because it's on screen. Like he
Yeah,
teaches. And just the setup and payoff is wonderful. Like this is writing 101 stuff, man. Like
I
this
guess it's
movie
like
is it's a super simple story, but it's a really good example of how to tell a character-driven story that doesn't feel contrived and again, so much of good writing is just setup and payoff, right? So the robot has to learn about death and cause and effect, and that he can cause that himself. The deer gets killed by a gun. That's the first moment where he hears that word, and he hasn't even connected it yet to, oh, I am a living weapon. I was built to kill, maybe. And I am a gun. And then later, when Hogarth pretends to shoot him with a fake gun, just playing, casts him as the bad guy robot Atomo or whatever it is. The robot sees the gun and immediately responds. This is I saw that kill something and I'm altruistic. I just inherently want things to live. And then the way all of that pays off at the very end is just brilliant. It's wonderful. But I love the simplicity of it because it's effortless. Like the way the whole story comes together at the end is really obvious. It's the way it's the way it should. It's the only way it can work. If you did it any other way, it would probably be really sappy.
like it's predictable in the way that just good storytelling is what you mean. Like it has to be that way.
No, it feels predictable retroactively, but as you say, like I'm lost in the moment with it.
Hmm. No, absolutely, because it's one of those things that just sucks you in, and I'm not fully prepared for a little kid and his giant robot to start talking about death and how everyone dies, and
Yeah,
it's something you have to deal with, and it's like wow, like I can't believe that we're having this conversation.
no, it's
And
great.
Vin Diesel as the Iron Giant obviously is very good. He strikes a weird balance between being genuinely um like emotional and also just being really funny, like
Yeah,
even in the same moments, like even when he's talking about dying, like I think it's really funny, but it's also got me.
that was the thing that before the show I was racking my brain trying to remember to make sure that I brought up because I didn't know if you saw it in the credits and if you noticed it, but I just want to make sure we talked about it because I am convinced that Gunn knows this movie and that's why he got Groot. Like I'm convinced of it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. uh there
It's
was
not
a
like Diesel's
specific
done a ton of voice work.
no and when he does his like little ET moment and he pokes him on the chest, it's basically the We Are Groot moment.
That's true. And it's a
No.
weirdly subtle performance because the robot doesn't know English at the start. It is the ET thing where like he starts to be able to formulate pardon me some words, but also he's got no vocal cords. How do you voice a character without vocal cords?
Well, it's you just sound weird like Vin Diesel.
It really works though because it's not even a speaker box or anything. It's not like
Mhm.
your standard robot. Like whoever built, and I really like by the way that we don't get into the alien mythology or anything. We have no idea where it came from. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
We don't even have to deal with why it has, as Hogarth says in the movie, a soul, because it feels like very classic science fiction, but again, pulp science fiction before like hard um like a novel or short story, 50s and 60s science fiction, right? Like this isn't Asimov. This is much more. Um, I don't know. I don't want to say John Carter, but I'm struggling to think of other like sci-fi pulps at the time. But it's in more of the vein of comics and serialized pulp fiction at the time, where we kind of just lay out a conceit and then we roll with it, and it's not it's like it's still human condition, but it's not asking the big question: does the robot have a soul? That's a given in this.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
he could be anything. He could be an alien. He could be a talking dog. It's a robot for the sense of the aesthetic and for the Cold War era ideas and stuff. Like the background and the aesthetic choice all comes together to form a piece. But it kind of doesn't matter even that it's a machine, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like you said, it is what it is more so because of what it's harkening back to, but it really could be anything.
So I say it could be anything. I guess it does have to be a machine in that the what if statement is, and I get this from a Brad Bird quote. He says he pitched it to the studio as, what if a gun didn't want to be a gun?
Hmm.
And so I guess inherently there it has to be a machine, because the whole point is, but I mean it could be, anything that's conditioned or air quotes programmed.
Yeah, it could be like Bushwhacker, where just his arm is a gun. Could be a biological gun. um,
Yeah,
but yeah, well, even
or it could be like Evil Dead,
yeah, exactly. Whatever that means.
where
But it
his
could be like a
hand gets
thing.
cut off and
Oh
then
yeah.
he puts a gun on it.
Oh, he puts a chainsaw on it. You
Oh,
fraud.
that's true. It is a chainsaw. He holds a gun with his other hand. That's true.
You're just describing Bushwhacker, which I already said.
Yeah, that's true, but I didn't know what that was, so
Oh yeah, it's the Marvel villain.
I was trying to relate to you, Austin, which I find very difficult.
Yeah, most people have that issue. I don't know. I'm a sociopath. Anyways, um,
The other thing I really like, though, I'm just talking this out. In some ways, it could be anything. I guess thematically and with the point at the end, it is sort of important that it's a machine. I also really like, and I'm surprised that 42 minutes in we haven't brought this up yet.
mhm.
It's a Superman villain essentially that wants to be Superman. The robot is very clearly inspired a lot by the robots in the Fleischer Superman cartoon. And I think there's some other robots from around that period that kind of look like that too, but like it flies, it's got the same head shape, it's the same kind of rusty color, like it's that robot. And I imagine did you have this? I was imagining like it's an army of them, and one of them like somehow gets away or gets knocked off course or something.
Well, I just imagine now that that Rocketeer scene where it's like you see like the one and then it backs out and there's like the
Yes.
army of Rocketeers. Yeah, no, I
And
can
that
see
was
that.
also looking at that Fleischer short.
Mhm. Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it just made me sad that we don't have an MCU Ultimo because he's one of my favorite Iron Man villains.
And I don't know anything about that character. Is he a robot, or does he just wear another kind of Iron Man sort of suit?
No, he's a giant robot. Because that's in his first appearance, the Mandarin like built him, and he's inside of a volcano, and he like bursts out of it, and it's awesome.
Does he come off like a proto Ultron? Like, are there similarities between them?
No, but it's funny you say that because when Age of Ultron was being made, I was like, if I were in charge of it, his final mode would be just like a giant Ultimo. And I've always said I would have much preferred that over just they fight an army again.
Well, and that would, and again, now we're talking about a different movie.
Yeah.
That would have been really fun too, Austin, because I don't remember what Ultimo looks like, but could it not have maybe played like a reverse of the Mark One suit going into all the other suits, where like we hearken at the end, like his ultimate mode is like, going all the way back to like the first, or a big robot character from the early Marvel days. Like that could have been really cool.
Yeah, and I mean the MCU combines characters all the
All the
time,
time.
so it was something they easily could have done, but it's whatever. I will be on the side sad that I don't get Ultimo.
Well, and those movies very often start caring more about Iron Man villains when they aren't working with Iron Man himself. It's weird.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I'm waiting for Blizzard to be announced as the first FF villain.
Speaking of that, I forgot to mention this earlier too, but the
Mhm.
story that Ted Hughes wrote was called The Iron Man.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Like I said, I didn't know it was a short story,
And it
but
would have been right around the time that Stan Lee was creating all those characters.
Mhm.
So he's probably can't be influenced at all by what Marvel's doing right then. So it's
No,
like
'cause if it was 1960, it's before it predates Marvel's Iron Man.
62, I think, which is why I wasn't totally
I think
sure.
Iron Man's
Is it 63 or
63.
4?
I think it's 63.
But I
Someone in
mean,
the chat's gonna be like, "You're a fraud. You're wrong."
regardless, it's been a while since I've looked at all of that. I knew all those dates at one time, but like
I'm bad with dates, but I'm
I have
pretty
to
sure
sit down
there.
and reread all that stuff every now and again to get the dates back in my head. And I'm generally pretty decent with dates, but that's all within like a 3-year period, and so it's just hard to keep it in your head.
Well, yeah, because
Um,
Spider-Man's like August 62, I think, around there. Um,
and where does Iron Man fall in the sequence? Because obviously FF is like
looks
first, and
looks
then
it's FF, Ant-Man, Spider-Man,
I
and
always
then
forget Ant-Man.
it always jumbles between your kind of main Avengers
Hulk's
for
in
me.
there, Daredevil's in there.
I want to say it's like Thor, Hulk, maybe Iron Man. Um, yeah, Daredevil. Yeah, Josh says it is 63. I thought so.
But even if they've been the same year, they easily could have both come up with that name at the
Mhm.
same time.
No, absolutely. No, that's not that hardcore of a unique name.
I like that they didn't feel the need to change the name entirely, where they still kept the word iron.
Hmm. Yeah, well, and they probably tried to go with Titanium Man, but couldn't do that.
I and like I think the title of the original story is in some ways more apt because the point is this is a robot that is a man and he's indisputably a man. So like I kind of like that, but I like the Iron Giant as a pulpish title. Like if this had come out as like a 50s pulp thing, that sounds like what maybe you would have called it.
It
And I like
absolutely
that
does.
these people in this town, that's what they think to call him.
Mhm. No, it definitely adds to the pulpish nature of it, where it's like, yeah, it's the Iron Giant. Like, there you go.
Yeah, and anything that with like a huge character like that is going to harken back to Gulliver's Travels and that sort of thing. And so like these people in a town that have maybe never read or watched a story about a character like that besides the literature, like they're going to think giant before they're going to think maybe even robot.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely, because that's the big thing that kind of stands out is that he's a giant.
Another thing I wanted to mention real quick, just because this is weirdly relevant to me and you, Austin,
Mhm.
is the screenwriter for this movie wrote the initial draft that it's pretty clear to me that it was changed a lot, and it's got to be because of the story I'm about to tell you.
Mhm.
For secondhand lions, of all things.
Okay.
And originally, apparently, Brad Bird didn't want to wanted to I don't know, do the script himself and didn't really like the idea of like working with somebody else. And then he read that guy's script for Secondhand Lions, which hadn't been made yet, and
Mhm.
changed his mind based on it. That must have been heavily compromised. Because if he'd read what we saw, he probably would be like, no, I'm doing this all by myself,
Yeah, you'd
right?
be like,
Like,
get this guy out of here.
it's not a bad movie, but it's not a great script.
No, and it's very schmaltzy, which this isn't. So,
And this really could have fallen into that.
Yeah, so maybe that's just
territory.
like a director thing, because I
Hmm.
don't know who directed Secondhand Lions. I can't imagine it's
Yeah, I don't remember.
a big visionary guy, but then obviously a Brad Bird here, which at least at this point, I know this is his first movie, but he was kind of on a roll for a while.
Did you think the kind of villain in this, the army guy, was too over the top or mustache twirly?
No, I think it's played well enough that it fits into what they're harkening back into, and I think the actor does a really good job. And part of me also wondered if it was written for Phil Hartman, because it. So
Good call.
there's some moments where I went, this feels like he's doing like a Phil Hartman delivery, and I
Who
don't know if
was
that's
it? Anybody we
intentional.
know?
Yeah, is it Christopher McDonald is his name? He's in a ton of stuff. I'm trying to think of
A bunch
something
of
that
stuff I've never seen. I'm looking at it now.
trying to
Oh,
think of stuff that you would know. Um,
lots of voiceover stuff.
he's the main villain of Superhero movie, if you remember that.
Oh wow, weird. He was
He's in
Jor-El
that
in
stuff.
the Superman animated series.
Oh, okay, interesting. I
Crazy.
didn't know
So you and I have experienced this guy before
that.
together.
Yeah,
Interesting. I think one of the I think I agree with you. I had this with a couple of things. There's kind of the question of, is the anti, I don't know if I even want to say anti-gun, but just anti-violence message too heavy-handed? Is Does the villain seem too much, not like a real person? All of that. It's straddling a really interesting line between realism and this again kind of heightened um, 1950s that you sort of expect, where it's somewhere in between. So
Mhm.
it's not wholly realistic, and I think it sets that tone from the very beginning. Like when we're
Yeah,
talking about realism, we're talking about uh, mining truth in uh emotion and psychology and stuff. Like the human beings feel like people. And then it's like, well, this guy sort of doesn't, but is he dictionary definition sympathetic in the sense that you can tell he lost himself somewhere? Like we don't know his backstory or anything, but this guy probably wasn't always like this, is the sense I get. Like he's fallen into the paranoia of the Cold War.
No, absolutely. I mean, we talked about earlier with the message that they show to people, the kind of propaganda versus how it actually is. Like he's fully into that. Like, what do you mean we're not going to survive if we get into a nuclear shelter? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like he's lost the point. Like in a weird way, he's kind of a foil for the kid or the Iron Giant, in at least the sense that, he's not the exact opposite of our heroes, of course, but just in the sense that he's kind of lost his regard for life a little bit in being so obsessed with trying to be the hero. Like his heart's not in the right place.
Mhm.
And so it becomes all about destroying this thing that will hurt us before it's about saving people, and there's a difference. And that's the big difference with Superman. It's not about kill the bad guy. It's about save the person that is in danger.
No, absolutely. And because you asked if he was too mustache twirly, and he is, but in a way that's both fun and of what it's trying to do, so it just kind of fits in and it doesn't take you out. Like it just like that's kind of what he needs to be. It's a case where you're bending the rules because you need to, as opposed to, you know,
Yeah.
making your film worse.
Yeah, it's not a cop out because we just don't know how to tell this kind of story, and it's like, well, it has to have a villain. Like, uh,
Hmm.
because I also like that. Again, it doesn't feel like it's plugging in for a formula. I don't know for sure. I mean, I do because I saw this movie when I was a kid, and I sort of remember uh, some of this part of it. But I on a first time viewing, you probably can't be totally sure even that that guy will be the bad guy. Like he's got multiple opportunities for change, and there are bits where you think he might take them, particularly when he finally gets the army general to believe what he's saying. Because like, look behind you, there's the robot,
Hmm.
and like I didn't expect him to go. I'd forgotten this part. I didn't expect him to go as far as, and this is one of the other things that makes you go, "Wow, this is going this far." This cartoon aimed at children, where he tells the general the robot killed the kid when he knows that he's still got him. I mean, like he's basically like signed the kid's death warrant and knows it and thinks it's necessary. And so I mean, I guess it's that classic like he's so far gone, he's in a extreme ends justifies the means kind of place. Maybe it starts because I said earlier glory. Maybe it starts from a place of he's wanting glory, he's wanting recognition, and it kind of turns into this sort of desperation of I bought too much into the hype.
Well, you know what he is? He's Gaston, right? Like
I had that
you take the hero of a story of this period, and you make him the villain.
Yeah.
Like, look how crazy he actually is, you know?
No, that's exactly right. No, you're right. Yeah, because our heroes at the time would be the soldiers, the army guys.
You're kind of scientists in a lab for your like 1950s
Yeah.
pulp sci-fi thing.
Yeah, it's your holdover from World War II when we knew who the bad guys were.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
And now it's harder because like we think we do with the Russians, but we could also be the bad guys if we strike first. And so that makes
Mhm.
it all real murky.
Yeah, no, and Russia's almost like Sauron in this, where it's just like a looming thing over it, but there's never actually any presence from him or from them in this case.
Yeah, well, and I love dealing with the Superman ideal and specifically talking about Superman in a Cold War thing like this because if Superman, even if he knows that there's a chance that the other guy is going to drop the bomb, he's not going to strike first because it's simply wrong. And so if and I mean, like, it's not like Superman never, kills in, like, self defense or to save a person or whatever on an individual basis. But when it's kind of like the Zordon thing. Like, you're just waiting for the other person to do anything wrong. Like, just having that weapon is not enough to destroy them.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And if they get you first, that sucks, but at least, you didn't do the untold horror yourself.
You have the moral high ground.
Yeah.
Hmm. No, absolutely. Hey, maybe in the next movie, the Iron Giant would steal all the nukes and throw them into the sun.
Yeah, Iron Giant 2, The Quest for Peace.
Yeah. The Quest for Camelot, it's a crossover.
Oh no.
The nukes all hit the sun and it sends them back in time.
I thought you were just gonna say the nukes are like the brand of nuke is like the Camelot missile.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
At the beginning of the show, Bob the Hun put in a $2 super chat and just said
Mhm.
Brad Bird should have directed Star Wars, not Abrams.
Well, he was asked and he said no. He did.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he was the first person, from what I understand, that they went to, and he turned it down to do Tomorrowland. And I'm sure that's what he
That's
would
so
have rather
interesting.
done, but probably worse for his career.
Yeah, that's sad. And I'm the only person on the planet that really liked that movie,
And I've never seen it, so I
which is
can't
interesting.
judge it.
I
But
don't know that. I don't know if you'd like it or not. To be honest with you, it's a little heavy-handed. Uh, and it's one of those things where I'm not sure if part of the reason I liked it as much as I did was just because I massively agreed with with its message or not. Like I'm not sure. I need to see it again.
Mhm.
It's one of those things where like thematically it got me, but I also thought it was a lot of fun. Like, but I had that with Man of Steel, and then when I saw that again, I was like, oh, okay, I was drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit. But
there was no fun to be had in that.
but that's so interesting because Tomorrowland is brought up in this.
Yeah, oh, I must have missed that. They referenced Tomorrowland.
Yeah. That's
Interesting.
another thing that gave it a sense of authenticity was just all the period, topical references to things.
No, absolutely. What was I gonna say about Brad Bird
Oh,
and
sorry.
Star Wars? No, no, it's okay. I don't know. It is definitely a shame he didn't do that, but whatever.
Well, it's also
At
sad
least we
because
got a sequel to The Incredibles.
if I'm remembering this correctly, Star Wars kind of ruined Tomorrowland at the theme parks because they gutted it to make Star Wars stuff at the theme parks.
Hmm. Yeah, so
That's kind of sad.
jokes on you, Brad Bird.
No, that's really interesting. Also, speaking of, again, jumping around, people passing on projects, I mentioned a while back now, Bluth. He was approached to make this movie and passed on it.
Oh, cool. I'm trying to think of when this comes, like, in his career. This might have been when he starts to drop off, but it probably is. But I don't remember offhand. Um,
I didn't know if he was even still making movies in '99.
well, doesn't he have one in, like, into the 2000s, or am I wrong about
Does he?
that?
I don't remember. There might be
Yeah.
some stuff that I didn't know was him because there's still enough, like, of his footprint on stuff. I can't always tell when it's him.
No, and that's fair too.
Like I said, for a split second, I wondered if he worked on this.
Hmm. No, and I mean, oh, this was after Anastasia, so I think he has one movie after Anastasia,
Does he?
maybe two. I know he does like a spin-off thing from Anastasia,
Yeah. Oh, weird.
but it was straight to DVD.
There was a Bartok thing, but I didn't know if he had
That it
anything
was
to do
that.
with it.
Yeah, that
Oh,
was like one of the only straight to DVD things based on his work that he went, yeah, I'll do this, and I've heard
very
it's
strange.
actually pretty good.
I never saw that.
I can't remember if I've ever. I don't know. I've seen Anastasia.
Well, Anastasia it freaked me out enough. I didn't really want to look at anything else connected to it. Like, uh,
No, for sure. Well, I still need to see Land Before
I
Time.
don't hate that movie, but that's another one of those things that I had to watch kind of too much when I was a kid. Or when I was a kid. When I was around this age, I guess, with this 14, 13, 14.
Well, and to be
Um,
fair, like there is a sliding scale where you get to that point, and I think most people go like, yeah, he wasn't as on top as he used to be.
I haven't seen Land Before Time in probably 20 years either.
And I've never seen it, and I've never seen.
The 19 sequels?
No, I've actually seen 5 and 6. I had them on VHS, and I watched them all the time. I think it was 5 and 6. Anyways,
That's hilarious.
what's the American
American Tail.
Mouse or Fairy? Yeah, whatever that one is. I've never seen that, but
Well,
I
that's
love Secret.
Bluth's most well-known work,
Hmm. No, for sure.
arguably.
And I love Secret of Nim. That movie's great. I
And
almost got to see it in
it's weird.
the
I've
theater.
never seen that.
Really?
Yeah,
I almost got to see it in the theater a little bit ago, but it didn't work out.
but my mom loved American Tail. We saw that 119 times when I was a kid,
Hmm. See, I had
and I haven't seen that in probably 25 years. And if I go back to that, that's going to be one of those experiences where right now there are certain scenes that I could describe for you, but I couldn't, give you like the whole rundown of the story.
Mhm.
But I bet you turn that on and like from second one, I'll feel like I saw it yesterday. I've got that with a lot of Disney movies. This one, I meant to talk about this earlier. This one, my experience was, I don't know what's coming next. I don't remember exactly the arc of the story, but it all felt really familiar. Like there were every scene. Like it was like simultaneously, I know this movie really well, and I have no idea what's coming.
Yeah.
That was a weird experience.
Oh, that's funny.
And there were certain
Uh,
lines of dialogue that I couldn't predict them, but then once they came back, I was like, oh, I've quoted this, but it's been a long time, you know? My favorite line from this movie was always, oh, and especially the way he says it, the line delivery, Hogarth? Might as well call him Zeppo. It's great.
well, then you always walk around and you go, Geralt. God.
Yeah, like the Iron Giant is voiced like somebody ripped out Vin Diesel's larynx.
Yeah. Well, it's like they poured like diesel fuel down his throat, and then he had to deliver his lines.
With references, one thing and again, just the thing that kind of gave it a sense of authenticity, where this kid felt, again, in a heightened world, but more or less like a kid that would have lived then. I like when he's running down his magazines and like the ones that are worth reading and the ones that are just he gets to Boy's Life and he's like, I guess my mom makes me get this magazine. It's great. I had Boys Life. I could relate to that.
Oh,
I was in Boy Scouts and stuff.
oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
I don't know, 13 years, 5,000 videos. I don't know if I've ever brought that up before, but
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard you say that. Wow. I
yeah.
never did anything like that. I
I've still
was
got skeletons in my closet. Like, I was in
well,
Boy Scouts. I don't really want anybody to know that, but now I've said it out loud.
I'm gonna pull a Watchman and literally look in your closet to find the skeleton.
It's plastic. I bought it at Spirit Halloween. Spock's Lover, $2 super chat. Chris McDonald is in Mystery Men. You've seen him. I don't know who he plays in that. And
I've never seen that.
that's a movie that does not stick with me at all. Like, I liked it, and when I did the rewind, it's the only time I've ever seen it. I can't tell you anything about it now, and I'm gonna have to do a re-review on that because it was requested um, recently with a contest thing I did. So I guess I'm doing that again, and then
Oh, I
and
guess I'll have a reason to watch it.
yeah, well, it's not for request, it's for rewind,
Oh,
but
oh, okay. I see.
yeah, it was one of the 6 hour things in the 24-hour stream
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
where four different people got to pick, and they haven't all gotten back to me yet, but got to pick re-reviews, and Tom asked me to do that one.
Oh, okay, interesting. No, I know that movie more so is just uh, it's funny that the song everybody thinks of for Shrek is actually made for that. But anyways,
I'm sorry, I'm distracted. Josh, have I been pronouncing your name wrong this entire time?
I don't know, but I purposefully mispronounce his name every time it comes out on the show.
Like, is the S silent? I don't know what these guys are talking about in the comments here, but well, anyway,
I
my
don't know. He's
apologies if
from
that's the case. But
Jersey.
Josh has been a patron forever, and I've said his name at the end of probably 35 rewinds. Bob
For
Dunn says
shame.
Chris McDonald is Captain Amazing. I don't even remember that character. Like, I'm gonna have to see that movie again. It's been 10 years. Like,
I don't know. He's the ultimate mystery man tonight.
is there any part of you that felt like this was the beginning of what could have been a franchise with legs, and you wish we had more of it, or is this a one and done story?
I mean, you could probably do more just because we set it up that way, but because that ending feels cheap, I almost feel like I wish that was kind of cut off and it was its own standalone thing. But because that is there, like you could have moved forward with this.
At the same
I
time, I
don't know.
like that. I like the last image we're left with. If that's what we have to do with it, like it's, I
Mhm.
don't know, it's fun. I like it's some of the it's one of the coolest shots in the movie. I think.
I don't. I'm also weird. Like I never needed a sequel to Incredibles. I was always like oh, if we had one, like that's cool. But I don't need one.
Yeah.
So it's not something that like jumps out at me. And now I get to laugh at everybody that demanded a sequel to Incredibles because we got the
15 years and it's
Incredibles
as
too.
generic as it could possibly be. Yeah.
Yeah, because it sucked.
I don't think it sucks. I just think it's kind of nothing. Like
Well, that's why it sucks. Like it sucks because it's so like nothing
you
and
can't
just
help
kind
but
of
hold it
throwaway.
to a certain bar, it being what it is. Like you'd rather not have anything if it's going to be nothing.
Yeah, but it's also just like a weird thing to watch back to back now because the ending of one is so completely like drastically different than where two begins, and it's yeah, I don't know, it's lame.
Matthew Bay. So I mispronounced your name on purpose because at one point you finally corrected me and told me that it was Bass, and because I said it Bass forever, I've just kept doing it. Just got
Hey,
used to it.
same
I couldn't
base.
be
That's
consistent.
it.
I kept still saying it wrong. I was like, whatever. If he gets upset, I'll start trying harder. But I don't think he cares.
I think he's saying he cares.
Thanks, Matthew. I appreciate it. I don't know. Well, if he says he cares, then I'll try
You should
harder.
just start calling him Matthew instead, like now, just to add insult to injury.
Like the priest in the Daredevil movie.
Yeah.
Remember that? What else do we need to talk about with this movie, Austin?
I guess we didn't talk about the like father figure character guy, the art man.
Yeah, the beatnik.
Yeah, the guy who looks like Tony Stark.
Yeah, I felt like I was getting a lot of different possible vibes off him, like different actors um that you could cast if it was live action. I kept going back and forth between David Duchovny and
Keira
Jeff
Knightley.
Goldblum.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could see Goldblum. He's got that kind of
Can't
look.
you kind of see Duchovny too, though? Like,
Yeah, I'm just not as familiar with him. I've seen him in a lot less.
oh, that's fair.
But yeah, that is true. I could see both of those guys. Maybe a Keanu if it's
Oh yeah,
lamer.
that's a that's a good point. Do you not like Keanu Reeves?
No, I like Keanu Reeves, but Keanu Reeves, you need to know what you're doing with him. Otherwise, you get like Dracula.
But yeah, I found that character really charming, and I thought he was pretty layered. Uh, like he is the father figure. He does give the kid uh, the big lesson that he's going to have to teach the robot, which is, by the way, I think I like a lot that the idea that in the human condition. You, or at least this is the point the movie is making, whether it can be argued or not, philosophically is a different thing, but the idea that human beings have the capacity to go against their instinctual programming and let reason or faith or whatever it is win out, but because the self-preservation kind of override is so strong, you do maybe need somebody to teach you that. You're maybe not 100% born with it, or it might be easy to be taught taught out of you. So I like that like both of the characters that learn that lesson here, like the kid has altruism, the kid has compassion, the kid has you should be Superman, not the bad guy, but it's because the comics have been telling him that. Like that's solely where he gets that, right? Is like Superman is the good guy. You don't want to be the Atomo robot. You want to be Superman, right? But the kid does have to be told by the father figure, um, you can be whoever you want to be. You choose, and then he has to be that for the robot at the end. I like the idea that and part of it's because he's a kid and he hasn't found himself yet. But I like the idea that somebody has to teach you that.
Hmm. No, and I feel like in a lesser movie, his character might not work. But this movie handles it like really well. Like even while watching it, I wasn't necessarily going, "Oh, like he's just kind of the father figure character." It was just like, "Oh, like here's this guy." Like I'm just kind of in with it. I'm not seeing the gears turning
Yeah.
necessarily.
Well, and kind of literal gears because he has a um not a junk shop,
No, he's got like a junkyard
a
and he makes
junkyard.
art
Thank you.
out of the junk.
Yeah, I also like that that idealism comes from a character uh who just wants to make art for a living, because like so much of this is about imagination and inspiring people with art, weirdly. And I think that's so subtle, it might be easy on a first read to not even realize that that's in there. But it really is, particularly with the influence of the Superman comic. But I like that guy is idealistic but not naive about it. He's really self-aware. Like he's self-critical about it, which makes him instantly sympathetic. And that is way more sophisticated than you would expect an animated kids movie to be with a character like that, right? That he's sitting in his junkyard going, I can barely support myself. I'm making art. I can't decide if I'm a junk dealer that makes art or an artist that sells junk. Like, I loved that speech.
Hmm. Well, and like with the critical thing, like he is one of the characters that goes like, "There's no point in going to a shelter because we're all dead." Like
Yeah.
you know, like it's there is that level to him as well. You're right. It
You're right.
more,
There's an inherent cynicism to him too, because he turns against the robot at the first sign.
yeah, no, absolutely.
You know, but
That
again, he's
that's
sympathetic in that he's reasonable. Like as soon as he realizes that he's not looking at it right, that the robot was just it was just a defense mechanism that's programmed into him, he immediately goes after the robot. I mean, like if you have you have an opportunity as a viewer to turn against that character, and it only gives you seconds before you can't turn on that character anymore.
No, it's basically like when you see that your dog like bit your kid, and then you get mad at the dog, and then you realize it was because your kid was like hitting the dog with a bat, and you go, "Oh, well, never mind. The dog was right."
Yeah, that is the perfect analogy.
Thank you.
No, I was surprised by the end how much I actually really liked that character.
hmm Yeah, no, I feel like just kind of every character works in this. It's not one where you go like, oh, there's that one character that kind of takes you out or is the weak link of the cast. Even like I said, I'm not a big fan of Jennifer Aniston, but I think she disappears and does a really good job as the mom. And it doesn't feel typical either. Like it obviously is to an extent,
Yeah,
but
and
like it
maybe
doesn't in
has
the
to be to
moment.
some degree, but because she's also a very reasonable character and could just seem like really naggy and whiny, but she's got I don't know, she's got a little bit of like kind of a sarcasm about her. Um, she is she's drawn like Fleischer Lois Lane.
Yeah.
I think maybe she's got red hair. I can't remember, but like she's drawn like that. And she's got a little bit of that personality too.
hmm Well, and
You could see
as a
like a
mom,
Noelle Neal playing her.
yeah, or like Aunt Susie. Um, just the Fleischer Lois Lane in live action.
Right. The role she was born to play and sadly never got the opportunity to.
Well, it's just really unfortunate because she was born to play a role that went to a cartoon. But yeah, it is what it is.
Well, she could have been in Adventures of Superman. It was on at the same time that movie came out.
No, but I think she would have fit better if she was just the one live action thing in the
No
Fleischer
one watched
cartoon.
that video. What are we talking about right now? Anchors Away,
Anchors Away, yeah.
1957.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I'm twitching, trying to remember.
You're rebuilding yourself.
Exactly.
No, but like
I've got a bolt that's flashing blue right now. It's on its way. Did you not think the kid would follow the bolt?
No, I was more wondering if he was going to get radiation poisoning.
Isn't it? I'm nitpicking. Isn't it a little easy that he doesn't open the window and follow the bolt?
I mean, it's a good thing he didn't, because the bolts go into like Siberia.
That's my point. Is that it's a little contrite. He doesn't know how far away all the parts are. Like a kid that age with his level of naivety, I would think he would think that like all the parts of the robot, especially because the bolt is there. Well, no, that's not true either because it got mailed to him.
Yeah, they mailed it to him.
But I was just gonna say like he wouldn't know the parts were strewn out all over the place. He'd think that it would have all crashed back into that town.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it didn't. So
yeah, no, it went all over the place. There's probably some of it that went into space even.
Well, I guess it's able to travel back because it. Presumably, the whole robot will get back together. I don't think he's going to have any pieces missing.
You never know. He was missing his hand in that kitchen scene, so
that could have been the sequel, right? Is that like NASA has to go on a mission to retrieve his leg?
the Iron Giant goes to the moon.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, they did Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars. Like, why not?
Okay, well there you go. I want him to fight aliens on the moon. That's what the sequel should be. That's where you get. That's where you get the Zod Giant.
Oh my god! And it's got like 2 follower giants that come with it, and like
yeah, one of them's female and one of them's even bigger, but he doesn't speak.
keeps trying to shoot beams out of his eyes, but can't figure out how to do it.
Yeah, and then the Iron Giant, he like throws his iron symbol at them, and it wraps around him.
Um, I meant to mention this earlier, but the thing with the mail reminded me of this. I'm glad I thought to mention this. One of the other reasons that the bad guy maybe doesn't come off as two-dimensional as he might is because we do subvert the typical thing with the general. That guy is super reasonable.
Hmm. No, that guy could have easily been over the top, just angry general man. That's
Yeah,
no fun.
he could have been the guy from Avatar, but he's not. Uh,
No, 'cause this is a movie.
he
Notice,
is
notice how it does stuff with technology, where it mixes different types of animation while also telling a story.
right.
Isn't that quaint?
Yeah, I know. It really is. When you said, remember when we used to do hand-drawn animation, I really thought you were going to say, remember back when we used to tell stories?
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
I'm gonna stop watching anything genre from like post, I don't know, 08, 99, I don't know. I'm
I don't.
just
I
kidding.
had no interest in seeing Avatar 2 until I saw the new trailer and I got to see like scenes with 16-year-old Sigourney.
I don't want to get into that whole thing. I'm not seeing that movie.
Ah,
Um
that's
but
it.
but I was just gonna say, like that guy's actually competent and doing his job, and
Yeah, isn't crazy.
it's really cool that he was thoughtful and sensitive enough to send that piece to the kid.
Hmm. No,
I'm just
that's
saying,
kind
like, how
of
often do you see the
heartwarming.
army general that goes on, kind of the warpath after, the big thing he doesn't understand, and he turns out to be one of the most, sensible and likable characters in the film. Like, he was just doing his job. He had it, like, the the first time he sees the robot, it really does look like he's tearing up this town.
Hmm. No, absolutely. I mean, when you turn around and you see just a giant robot running through a town, you go, "Oh, we better kill that thing."
Yeah, like that's kind of understandable. I was shocked when he turns to the bad guy army character. I forget his name, and he says, "Wait, you want to send the bomb here?" Like that's
Yeah.
the character that usually comes up with that. It's like, well, I guess we're gonna just have to nuke it.
Hmm.
And he's like,
Yeah.
"That's a terrible idea." And I love how exaggerated his face is. Like that's that bird thing you were talking about, where he's just like, "The nuke? What are you nuts?" It's great.
Well, the general's like, "That's a stupid ass decision." um, No, I did laugh that he did the Nick Fury thing from Avengers, where Nick Fury sees like the plane and he shoots it with a rocket, and then the second plane goes out, and Nick Fury takes out a pistol, like he's gonna shoot a plane down with a pistol. And when they're first attacking the Iron Giant,
I
the
never
general's got
understood
like a
that.
little pistol and he's shooting them with. I was like, yes, there we go.
Well, Austin, we're gonna have to go ahead and wrap things up here. Can you think of anything else that you want to make sure we talk about, or we mentioned real briefly here? We're almost at an hour and a half already.
Nothing offhand. Um, Osmosis Dark Hell David asks us what our favorite WB movies are. I feel like
Just
that's
in general.
good. Yeah, I guess just in general. I feel like that's a pretty good question.
Oh,
But you can always just do animated because this is an animated WB movie.
sure, yeah. I mean, like when I think Warner Brothers, obviously the first thing I go to is like Batman and stuff. So it's hard to like get that out of my head and think of other things that are specifically Warner Brothers. Like that's the studio that I have that with, where I almost have to look at a list and it's like, oh, that's right, those are those movies I love that Warner Brothers made.
Hmm. Yeah, like you don't know offhand. Well, then there's just stuff where it's like, should it even count? Like, um, like New Line or something like that, where it's like a company under Warner Brothers. Where it's like, do you count that?
Yeah.
Because like I don't know, like they own Wizard of Oz now. They didn't make it. Like, does that count? I don't know.
Well, I guess for me it's The Matrix. I mean, that's the
Yeah,
obvious thing. That's my favorite movie of all time. Warner Brothers made that movie, so I guess that's it. In animation, I mean, what other stuff is specifically Warner Brothers animation? Like when I think of Warner's animation, I think of TV before I think film.
yeah, and I mean, I go to like the kind of classic, like the Looney Tunes shirts.
Right.
So I guess it would probably just be one of the movie kind of amalgamations that they did of those that they did for a while. Maybe the Ghostbusters one. I don't know. I watched that every Halloween as a kid. I'll say that.
James Curry, and welcome. He says, I'm new to the stream, but did you watch the extended version or the normal version? I'm glad you brought that up. So I
Oh,
didn't
I
know
know
this.
there's two cuts.
This movie was re-released in 2015 in the theater, and I didn't know about that. I would have gone. And I wish I'd known. It would have been cool to see this in the theater, because
Mhm.
I can't remember if I did or not. I may have seen this only on video. I couldn't tell you, actually. I forget. And you'd think, like, this looks like a really theatrical worthy movie. I can't remember. But I did watch the extended version. I couldn't tell you what the difference is, because it's just been too long since I saw the theatrical.
Yeah, I didn't even know there was an extended version.
Amazon was
Yeah, it's not
streaming,
bad.
and I didn't know it was extended. It just was like some, highfalutin special edition, and it was the same price as the regular one to rent. So, pardon me, I that's the one I rented. I assumed it was just remastered, and it is remastered, but apparently it's also extended.
That's unfortunate. It's not just on HBO Max for you guys.
Yeah, right. It should be.
Yeah, yeah. I watched it on Amazon, but it was on one of like the editions that I already had. It was
I
only 86 minutes, so I assume it was theatrical.
uh, I don't think mine was any longer than that though. So maybe the one I watched wasn't the extended one. I don't know. I assumed it was.
Hmm.
Maybe it's extended by like 2 minutes. I can't
It
imagine
just adds the ending.
what. No, that was definitely in the theater,
No,
because I
no, no.
remember that. Um. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap things up. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Sure appreciate it. We'll be back again next week with another one. The next request is from Stone Gaspin. We almost did this 2 weeks ago. We're finally going to do Night Shift, which is a early mid-80s comedy. I forget when exactly that came out.
Cool.
That was requested. Like I said, Stone Gaspin. So we'll go ahead and knock his out next time. If you would like to make a request for our show called The ReQuest, you can go to patreon.com/geekvolution. The $15 tier makes that possible, and you only have to be subscribed for 1 month to get your request in the queue. We have a good number of people still there and with request right now, so expect a 3.5 to 4 month wait, more like 4 right now. If you do that, if you stay in that tier, you'll stay in the rotation, but you don't have to do that. You only have to let it roll over 1 month. And you can request a movie, a comic arc, or a graphic novel, or a TV pilot. And we've just been loving spreading our wings and learning about lots of things we'd never bother with otherwise, maybe. And also things like this for me, going back to for the first time in a million years and having a new experience, but still really enjoying it. And I'm glad that you finally had cause to watch this.
Hmm. Yeah, no, like you said, it's really spreading our wings. Like Space Jam, I believed I could fly. So,
I believed you could touch the sky. I always believed in you,
oh,
even when you
thank you,
didn't.
thank you. Even before you met me, you were
That's
like,
fine.
I believe in that guy.
Tom just put in a $2 super chat and says, "Dream scene with the beatnik is the biggest change." Oh, really? Uh, did you get that scene? The dream
No.
sequence? Okay, interesting. I didn't remember that, but I figured that my memory was just faulty. Yeah, and I can see why you'd cut that, but I kind of like it. Maybe it goes too far. Yeah, the robot has a dream sequence.
Oh, weird.
And it's real surreal, and yeah, and I can't remember if it's like him going on a rampage or what exactly, but it's one of those things that really drives home. This character is sentient and self-aware and a person, and there's no question he's dreaming. He didn't have to have like a chip put in him like Data, like a program, like he is, his soul from the beginning. Now you do have to kind of ask that question: if these robots are built to be weapons in the first place, why would they be built with artificial intelligence that goes so far as to arguably have a soul? But then, like, even though he's got so many, and it's nuts, like all the weapons that open up at the end when the chest opens, and it's super over the top and really scary. I love all that. You've gotta wonder, like, are they built just to have a defense mechanism, like to, I don't know, save their people if it becomes necessary, or are they maybe like a like Transformers or something, like just a race on their own? Because it could be that.
Oh, maybe that's what the sequel would be. You get the Quintesson equivalent.
See, I don't need that with this. It's fun to speculate, but like a part of me doesn't want to know, just because I don't trust that you wouldn't really botch that up. I don't know.
I would be fine with seeing it if it was as awesome as the Quintesson scene in the Transformers the movie, where they're like guilty or innocent.
Innocent. And then they still get dropped into the pit with the Sharktatrons or whatever they are.
Yeah, it's awesome. That movie's a masterpiece.
It's absolutely wonderful. Chewbacca's lover. We see his home planet and who made him. Oh, is that the dream? Is that what that was supposed to be? Okay. I'll have to look at that part again.
Yeah, I'll have to look up that scene then, since I didn't get to see it.
Yeah, and I didn't message you and tell you which cut to look at, because I didn't realize that anything was changed. I thought it was just, remastered. So I read about that today, and I was like, oh, did I watch a longer cut? I may have.
It's like a Spider-Man, like an MCU Spider-Man extended cut.
Where it's like 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like No Way Home, where they added like an extra 3 scenes of Betty.
This is less superfluous, though, if it's giving us images of actual mythology, because none of that's in the movie.
No,
in
it's
the theater.
definitely more important.
All right. Well, thanks again for being here, folks. We sure appreciate it. We will see you again next week. Tomorrow, another Captain Logan show at 7 o'clock Central. And Friday, Austin and I and Dan Torrey are going to be reviewing a number of What If comics, classic What If. And all of the issues are listed in a post I made today on the community tab if you want to read them ahead of time. And then Sunday, Connor and I and Kareem are going to be reviewing the new... wait, is that this weekend? No, next week is Black Panther, right? Yes?
Yeah, it's next week.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, look forward to that. Lots of big stuff, and also the Weird Al movie is next week too. So things are about to get really.
Well, it's this week. It's Friday.
Here. Wait, is it?
Yeah, it comes out on Friday.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it comes out on the 4th.
No, it comes out on the 8th.
Oh,
I
weird.
thought that too, and then I had to look it up. Yeah, I started messaging everybody and giving them the wrong date, and then I found out I was wrong about it, and I had to...
That's really unfortunate. I was like, yeah, I get to watch it after I show on Friday.
No, Austin, this is the whole reason that we have to review it the next Friday. It comes out like Wednesday.
Oh, that's dumb.
Because it's a streaming drop. They can drop it whenever they want to. Yeah, but no, it's the 8th.
Weird. Okay. Well, I was really looking forward to watching it this weekend. That's unfortunate.
I'm sorry, man. I was too, and then I found out I was wrong about it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Folks, once again, thanks for being here, and we'll see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan. This was Austin, the Day Ghost. So I've never said this before. It's a really good Iron Giant impression. Bye, everybody.